If you create sites using tools like Advanced Custom Fields or Jet Engine, you'll know that a big part of that is all about creating custom post types, meta fields, taxonomies, and those kinds of things. Well, today we're going to be taking a look at a free plugin that's been released recently called Advanced Custom Post Type Lite. There is a pro version, and we will take a quick look over what features are in the pro version in comparison to the free version, but today we're only looking at the Lite or the free version of the plugin. Okay, so let's take a look at what we have. This is the plugin itself over on the WordPress repository. I'll link to this in the description below. Once you've gone ahead and installed the plugin, you'll have a new entry inside your dashboard called ACPT Lite. Inside there, we've got 4 different options. Let's take a look first of all at the settings because, well, to be honest, there's only one setting inside there. And that is you can set the language you want. At the moment, we've got English as the option. So there's no other options inside there. So it shouldn't take you more than at least 1 second to change anything if you want to. Then we've got the ACPT Lite, which is kind of like your dashboard. Then you've got your registered post type and your registered taxonomies. We'll take a look at those in a moment. Let's open up the ACPT Lite. This is going to give us an overview now of all of the post types, whether they're native, whether they're custom, or whether they're WooCommerce that our particular website currently has. So if we take a look at this, you can see that we've got pages, posts, we've got products and so on. Pages and posts are native. The rest are custom except for WooCommerce, which is a WooCommerce option. We can see the icons associated with those, and we can also do things like manage the meta boxes, product data in the case of WooCommerce, associated taxonomies, and the post count that you have for any of those post types. You can also see that this is broken down into 2 distinct sections. You've got the backend UI, which is the main part. This is available to you in the free or light version. However, the front end UI options are locked behind the paywall for the pro version. So nothing wrong with that. You've got to make money, and opening this up to a decent feature set is a good way to get people interested and potentially on board with the sales side of things. So that's the good from this initial section. Let me just go through some of the things that I'm not so fussed on. First of all, I'm not a big fan of the look. For me, it's a little bit lacking in polish, should we say. For example, if we take a look at something like Fluent Forms, which has a nice pro-looking layout, does this matter too much in regards to functionality? Not really, no. There are a couple of things that I think could be streamlined to make it a little bit more obvious, and I'll again go through those in a moment. But to me, this just looks a little bit more pro, especially when you're spending a decent amount of money if you go to the pro version of the plugin. But like I say, that's subjective. You might love the design. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan. The next thing I want to talk about is when it comes down to functionality or the user experience. If we take a look, for example, how do we go about actually editing any of these posts? We click over these buttons, we can manage those, but that's meta boxes and taxonomies. Well, you've got to go over the name, and once you hover over it, you then get 3 different icons. You can preview it, you can edit it, and you can delete it. But if you don't know they're there, you could easily miss those. So I'd like to see something just a little bit more obvious. There's a couple of other UI things that I think could be fine-tuned, and I'll come back to those when we create our taxonomy and some meta fields and so on, because you can't see them at the moment. But once we do, you'll see what I'm talking about. So we can preview this, and if we click the preview, it'll show us information about this particular custom post type. Inside there, we've got the basics, the labels, and the settings. And you can see if we want to, we can edit any of these. And this leads me on to another thing that I'm not overly fussed on. For me, so let's just say, for example, now I'm on the labels tab and I want to make some changes to the labels. My brain says, well, okay, let's click on the edit option and I'm going to start editing those. But it doesn't. It takes me into the 3-step wizard that you have when you create a custom post type and so on. So I have to now click to go into this. And then if I want to go to, for example, the settings section, I literally have to go through the different steps to get to it. For me, bit of a missed opportunity. There would be so much easier ways of doing this. Click on the actual settings section itself, have an option to jump through the different stages, or simply have the option when you're actually looking at the post type like we saw here, when you click on edit, you can literally edit the window that you are currently seeing. These are little things that don't sound like a lot, but if you're doing this 20 or 30 times a day on projects and it adds an extra few minutes every single time, you'll very quickly get bored of using a tool like this because it makes simple things a little bit more long-winded than they need to be. Okay, so we've seen the listings. I've told you some of the things that I'm not fussed on with the layout and some UI sort of things that I think could be tweaked. Next up, let's take a look at registering a new post type. So let's click on register new post type. And now you can see we're back in that wizard. Now, obviously, we're starting from scratch at this point. So the first thing you're going to do is give this a name. And this again leads on to one little thing that I think, add this in and it's going to make a world of difference. I come from using custom post type or CPTUI a lot. And when you put a post name in for the slug, which is basically like the little sort of like bit that it gets added to the URL for your post type, like vehicle, houses, those kinds of things, you can't use spaces. And if you can't use spaces, you have to use underscores or dashes. Well, if you're using CPTUI, it'll automatically put that in there for you if you put a space in. This gives you a notification to say it's not there. I would much rather it automatically just do it. So for example, let's just say we wanted to do house type. Okay, so house is fine, we can't use capitals. And so again, it would be nice if it just dropped that to lowercase automatically behind the scenes so we didn't have to worry. Once I put a space in, it tells me you can't use spaces, which is fine, but your brain just automatically add spaces in normally. Instead of giving me a warning, which I might not notice, just pop up and actually just automatically do it for me. Just makes my life so much easier, less thought process. So let's just change this. I'm going to call this properties. Then you see singular label, so property. And we'll just copy that to put it into the plural. There we go. We'll select our icon and we're going to use this home. And then we've got the support option. So again, if you're coming from something like custom post type UI, this is all going to feel very, very familiar to you. We're going to disable the excerpt because I don't want that inside here. And we'll use the title, editor and thumbnail. We'll click next. And then it takes us over now into the labels section. Now, this again is one of those things that maybe because this is really early in development and these things haven't been picked up upon yet, there's a couple of things inside here that I would like to see. For example, menu name, perfectly fine. Property, that's great. But you see all items and it says all elements property. So I'm assuming that the word elements doesn't need to be in there. So we can take that out. But it's pre-filling out the word property, which is the singular, but this is for a plural. So this should be properties. Again, like I say, silly little things, but they make a difference. And the same again. We've got add new, add property, that's fine. But edit item, new item, view item, and so on. So just need to make sure that these things are correct, that the grammar is correct. Now, it might be a case that English is not the first language of the developers behind this, and that's totally understandable. But hopefully, seeing a video like this will help them realize there's a couple of things that need to be refined, and they'll do that. And when you see this video, maybe in a week or two, if you look at it a bit later down the line, these things will be rectified and you won't have to even see these. So that being said, we'll leave everything else inside there and you can see all the labels are pre-filled. What I would like to see is where we got the previous and the next steps right at the bottom. If you don't want to change anything inside here, it'd just be nice to have the next and previous at the top as well, just for ease of use. Silly little things, but they can make a difference when it's speeding things up. Go to our next step and you'll see inside here we now have all the settings options. What I do appreciate about this is in comparison to CPTUI, some of the things that I always use that are enabled inside here are not enabled in CPTUI. So I appreciate the fact that this is set up so they are automatically enabled. What would be nice though is under the settings section, if there was a way to go in there and set up the default values you wanted for your custom post type settings, for your taxonomy settings, for your meta field settings, those kinds of things that you always want to have enabled or more often than not. It'd be nice to see those in the settings so you can customize what is and isn't enabled straight out of the box in the settings section. Okay, so a couple of things that we want to take a look at. Menu position. This says REST API base slug, so I'm assuming that's probably an error and it should have some different information inside there. Post, that's fine, has archive, like I say, automatically selected, which I like to see. Publicly queryable, we can enable that if you want to, and you can set anything else up inside you that you want. We'll hit save, and we've now registered our first custom post type. So if we take a look now at our listing, we'll see if we scroll down, we'll find, once it refreshes, we now have properties, which is a custom post type, shows us our icon, tells us that there's a post count of 2, because I've tested this out in the past, and we can now go ahead and we can add meta boxes and we can add taxonomies. And if we take a look at the side, you'll see we've got property and we've got all properties because I changed it, and add property. Okay, so pretty cool. Nothing we haven't seen before. Let's go ahead now and create a couple of taxonomies, or create a taxonomy and associate that with our property and see how this works. So we'll click on registered taxonomies. We'll register a new taxonomy. And again, you see it brings us back to this wizard. So the same things apply here. If you want to make edits, it'd be nice if you could just jump to the relevant section. So the slug for this example is going to be property I'll put the underscore myself, type, singular label, and we'll say property type. We'll copy that and we'll put the plural of property types, hit the next step. And again, you can see there's our labels. You can see we need to fill some of these out, but for now, I'm just going to leave them as they are. Next step. And then we've got all the settings. So again, same kind of thing applies. It's nice to see that a lot of the default options are set up in the right way that I would use them. And it's nice to see that you also have the capabilities, so you can manage what capabilities this particular taxonomy has. So manage terms, edit terms, delete and assign, those kinds of things. So do you want to make this sortable and so on? You can do all that. Showing the admin column is in there, showing quick edit, showing the tag club, those kinds of things. So once we're happy with that, we'll hit save. Now you may notice one important factor. We haven't associated that with anything. And it tells us now that we've got property type. There's our singular, there's our plural, the post count, and the custom post type. We don't know what it's associated with. So for me, now there's an extra step, whereas it would make so much more sense, like CPTUI does, as part of the settings or part of the setup process, you choose at that point, if custom post types are enabled and they're available, you can choose what you want to associate this taxonomy with. Again, like I say, just one of those little things. And when we're talking about little things, where we've got these little pop-ups, these little help icons, technically they are completely useless, because if you look, we go over, we've got singular, singular label, plural, plural label, post count, publish post count. Give us a link to some documentation, not so much with these, they're not too difficult, but other sections on the site. If you're going to put a help section in, a little help icon, give information that makes sense and link to descriptions and information in your articles about how to use a feature. Then they become useful. Right now, not so useful. Okay, so we've created and registered our taxonomy, but it's not associated with anything right now. So what we need to do is go back to our ACPT Lite. We're going to come down, find our properties, and we're going to come to manage our associated taxonomies. We're going to click on there. We've only got one taxonomy at the moment, but you could have multiple ones inside here, and now you get to choose to associate it. So we'll click associate, and we're going to say associate there. Now, I would like to see this being sort of Ajax enabled. So if I check to associate, especially if I've got multiple different options inside here, to make me also click on the associate button kind of feels a bit redundant. So maybe take a look at making the interface a little bit more Ajax orientated. So once you actually enable that radio box, that switch, whatever, it is automatically then done without a screen refresh. Just a little thing that I think would be useful. We can scroll down until we find our properties, and you can see there's our property type and manage. So we've got those inside there the way that we want. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the meta boxes. So we've created a taxonomy, we've created properties and so on. And if we take a look at our properties, you can see property types is listed up there as well. So those things are all done. Let's go ahead now and add in some meta boxes. Now the free version of this, the light version, only allows us to create 3 different meta boxes. So let's go ahead and add a new one. So this is now kind of a grouping of meta boxes like we've seen in many of the different tools that allow us to do this. We can add fields in, or we can continue to add more meta boxes, and consider the meta box in this context as being a placeholder to hold multiple different meta box fields. So let's go say add field, and we're just going to change this now to the price. Now, another thing that from a usability point of view I'd like to see updated is you can see that when we've got this placeholder inside the field, it stays in there. So now if I type something in, it doesn't remove that content. So when you're working through this really quickly and you're not necessarily looking up to see what you're doing, it's kind of frustrating that they don't automatically get overwritten. So just bear that in mind. And again, this is one of those things that I'd like to see from a usability point of view. It would be nice to see those things. Once you click inside there, it takes out whatever's in there. It's literally just placeholder. Okay, so we can choose the name, the label. Then we can choose the type, and like I said, there's only 3 types currently, so text, email, and select. So for this example, we're going to just set this to text. If you want to drop a default value in or a brief description, you can do that inside here. You can also set this to say you want to show it in the admin archive, and you want to show it in the field required section. So you can enable these if you want to, and then you can go ahead and add another field. So for this example, we're going to add a new field, and we're going to say this is going to be property lease. We'll just say, for example, we're going to set this now to be a select field, and you can see that now opens up our select field options. And again, we've got the same thing inside here. We click inside, we've got to remove this label. So we're just going to say 6 months. We'll copy that from there. Click inside. Again, we've got to remove that label inside there. We'll add another option, and we're going to set this to be 12 months. And we'll do the same inside the value as well. So we've created two different kinds of meta fields. Again, we're showing the admin archive show required field, and we're pretty much done there. So let's just save that. And there we go. We've now created those meta boxes and meta fields. Again, if we hop back to our ACPT Lite listing, we'll see now that that's actually listed inside there next to our custom post type. And there we go. There's our meta box. Now, this is showing you one of the things that I also think need to be updated. You can see that once we kind of get a couple of different items, they start to stack on top of each other with no spacing. This is one of those things that I don't really think makes a lot of sense. It would make more sense to just have a number next to it or just refine it in a different way. You know, there's a couple of things I think just from a usability UI point of view just need to be tidied up to give it that pro edge, especially when you're paying good money for, not so much the free version obviously, but this is going to be the same inside the pro version as well. But like I say, they're just visual things. And if you want to manage this, you can click inside there to go into the manage option. And again, this then takes you back in so you can make changes to this. So pretty easy to do. Okay, so now let's take a look at the actual property type itself. Let's see what's actually going on behind the scenes. So I've already gone ahead and added in a couple of basic properties and a couple of property types. You can see if we go into property types, I've just literally added in 3 different types: apartments, house, and penthouse. And if we go into the properties, you can see I've added a couple of properties inside there. But some of the extra information that we've created hasn't been added in because these were created before I added in those custom taxonomies and so on. So let's go ahead and open up one of these. You can see there's the normal basic information. And if we take a look on the right hand side, there's our property types: apartment, house, and penthouse. So we can choose whichever one this relates to. And then we've got our price. So let's just put a price in there. And whether this is a 6 or 12 month lease. This is a 12-month lease. And we'll click update. Now if we go back out of this and take a look at our listings, you can see property type is house, there's the price, and there's the lease. Nothing you haven't already seen before. But how do you actually go about then outputting that metadata? Well, currently this is still relatively limited. We can only do it inside Gutenberg right now, but the elemental based way of doing this is apparently coming. How far away it is, I don't know. But let's go take a look. So if we go into pages, for example, and we just open up any kind of page, or we'll add a new page in. Let's go ahead and add in a widget. And if we scroll through, you'll see we have an option for meta box fields. And we can insert that in, and then we can choose the meta box fields that we want to associate with it from within the actual CPT plugin. So that's basically it. That's kind of what you have inside the free version. But let's take a quick look now at the differences between the free version and the pro version. So the pro version currently is on offer. I believe there's like a 30% discount until the end of the month, something like that. But you can see there's the pricing. You've got your annual pricing for one license for a site, $49.99, up to $99.99 for unlimited licenses, or there's a lifetime option. Now, I'm going to be brutally honest now when it comes to this, when it comes to pricing. I think for a new plugin with relatively limited functionality at this point in time, this might be a little bit of a ask. I would much rather see, if you want to kind of come into a very, very established market, that you take a look at disrupting it through either features or pricing or both. And I think coming in at €49 for one license may be just a little bit on the steep side, especially when it's that $20, €20 for 4 more sites, and then you've got the unlimited, which is basically double the price of one site. Make it something like $29, $79, and I don't know, $99 for unlimited, wherever you want. And there's a lifetime deal as well if you want to take a look at doing that. No affiliate links from me side of things. This is just literally my opinion on the pricing side of things. But what do you get in the pro version? We've already seen creating custom post types and meta fields and taxonomies. That's in the free version anyway. But what you do get is you get a relationship builder, you get a HTML builder, integrated Gutenberg shortcode generator. So basically that's the extra key features you're going to get in the pro version. Like I say, hopefully what you get is additional meta fields, but at this point in time, I think it's a solid start, but it's got a long way to go until it competes with the likes of a combination of advanced custom fields and CPTUI, or a tool like Jet Engine, Toolset, those kinds of things. But as always, I would welcome your feedback on this. Have you tried this, the pro version or the free version? What are your thoughts, opinions, and give me your feedback in the comment section below. As always, all the applicable links are in the description. My name is Paul C. This is WPTuts, and until next time, Take care.